Karan's son parked his Porsche in my spot every single morning, even after I begged him to stop. But the day I took matters into my own hands, the entire HOA showed up. And when they found out who I really was, they froze. The first time I saw that red Porsche sitting in my parking spot, I honestly thought it was a mistake. It was early morning, soft light spilling over the manicured lawns of Maplewood Estates. Sprinklers hissed, birds chirped, and somewhere down the street, a lawnmower buzzed lazily. Everything looked like a postcard of peace, until I saw that car. My name's Daniel Grant, and for 3 quiet years, I lived in Unit 27, right across from the HOA president herself, Karen Whitmore. If you live in a neighborhood with an HOA, you probably already know someone like her. Perfect smile, perfect garden, perfect control over everything that happens on the block. And unfortunately for me, she had a teenage son named Tyler. Spoiled, loud, and fully convinced the world revolved around him. That morning, his Porsche was gleaming in my assigned spot, perfectly centered, shamelessly parked, like a crown jewel. My parking space, marked 27B, right next to my door. At first, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was a mix-up. Maybe he didn't notice the sign. I left a polite note on his windshield. "Hi, neighbor, this is my assigned parking. Could you please move your car next time? Thanks." Simple. Civil. But the next morning, the note was gone, and the Porsche was still there. Only this time, my windshield had a different note on it. "Find another spot, loser. HOA doesn't care." My stomach dropped. That arrogant tone, that handwriting, it screamed teenage entitlement. I went to the HOA office later that afternoon, thinking it would be a 5-minute issue. The office was small, tucked behind the clubhouse, smelling faintly of coffee and fake lavender. Behind the desk sat a volunteer clerk who looked nervous the moment I mentioned the name Whitmore. "Oh, yeah," he stammered, flipping through files. "That spot assigned to you, Mr. Grant. I'll make a note." "Can I expect this to be handled?" I asked. He hesitated. "Karan's son, right? Maybe just talk to her first." I left feeling uneasy. When I knocked on Karen's door, she opened it with the kind of smile you give someone you're already tired of. Her pearl earrings sparkled as she leaned against the frame. "Daniel, something wrong?" "Yeah," I said, keeping my tone measured. "Your son's been parking in my spot for 2 days. Could you please ask him to stop?" Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes sharpened. "Oh, that's his car. I didn't even notice." I pointed at it. "It's right across the street, Karen." He shrugged. "Teenagers, you know how they are." He probably thought it was open. I mentioned it. And that was that. No apology. No accountability. Just that sweet, fake HOA smile that told me I'd get nowhere. By the end of the week, the Porsche was parked there every single morning. At first, I tried ignoring it. I parked a little further down, near the mailbox, telling myself not to create drama. But every time I passed that bright red Porsche, polished, spotless, smog, something inside me burned. Then one Saturday, I came out to find a long white scratch across my car door. Fresh. Deep. Painfully deliberate. I knew exactly who did it. I confronted Tyler that afternoon while he was washing his car, earbuds in, music blasting. "Hey." I called out. He didn't look up. "Tyler." He finally removed an earbud, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah. That's my spot," I said firmly. "And I know what you did to my car." He smirked, leaning on his hood like a movie villain. "Relax, man. It's just a parking space." "It's not just a space. It's mine." He laughed. "You should be thanking me. That old junker of yours looks better next to this beauty." my fist clenched. I could practically hear my blood boiling. But I remembered where I was, quiet neighborhood, cameras everywhere, HOA board led by his mother. So I said nothing. I just took a picture of his smacking face beside that Porsche and walked away. That night, I filed an official complaint to the HOA with photo evidence, timestamps, and a copy of his taunting note. The next morning, my email pinged. Complaint received. Under review. Please refrain from personal confrontation. HOA board. That was it. No action. No fine. No apology. 3 days later, Karen herself left a voicemail on my phone. Daniel, dear, it's Karen. I just wanted to say it's not healthy to fixate on little things. Tyler's in college soon, so maybe just let this go. Let's all be neighborly. Neighborly. Right. I didn't reply. But that evening, I bought a small dashboard camera and pointed it straight toward my parking spot. If the HOA wasn't going to protect my rights, I'd protect them myself. Sunday morning came like clockwork, quiet streets, golden light, the faint sound of sprinklers, and right on schedule, Tyler's Porsche slid into my spot again. This time, I didn't yell. I didn't knock. I just walked to the car, stared at the reflection of my angry face in its flawless paint, and whispered, "Game on." That day, I started documenting everything. The car's arrival time. Departure time. Photos. License plate. HOA responses, or lack of them. Within a week, I had a folder full of evidence and a deep, simmering frustration that made sleep impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Tyler's laughter. Saw Karen's condescending smirk. Then, one Friday evening, something new happened. I got home late from work, exhausted, ready to collapse, and there it was again, the Porsche, packed neatly in my space, headlights still warm. But this time, Tyler was sitting inside, scrolling through his phone. I approached the window and knocked once. He glanced up lazily, then rolled it down halfway. "Something you need?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, my patience officially gone. "Move. The car." He smiled, that same infuriating grin. "You gonna make me?" Something in my chest snapped. "You think your mom can protect you forever? You're playing with the wrong guy, kid." He laughed, putting the car in reverse, not to leave, but to peel out dramatically, kicking gravel toward my shoes. As the taillights disappeared down the road, I stood there, fist shaking. That was it. I'd had enough. That night, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by paperwork, photos, and anger. If Karen wanted to play HOA politics, fine. I'd play too, smarter, quieter, and by the book. I started researching the HOA's own bylaws, the same ones Karen used to bully others for leaving trash cans out. And I found it, Section 8.3, unauthorized parking. It stated clearly that any resident parking in another member's assigned space could have their vehicle towed immediately, with no prior notice, if documented and reported. I smiled for the first time in weeks. The next morning, I walked outside, coffee in hand, and looked across the street. Sure enough, Tyler's Porsche was right there, bold as ever, glinting in the morning sun. I whispered under my breath, "You picked the wrong driveway." Then I took out my phone and started dialing. The tow truck company answered. And as the sound of the engine rumbled in the distance, I muttered to myself, "Tomorrow, he'll learn what happens when you mess with the wrong neighbor." By Monday morning, I was done playing nice. I had every photo, timestamp, and clip saved neatly in a folder titled Parking War Evidence. At 9 a.m. sharp, I sent a formal complaint to the HOA board with all attachments, plus a request for immediate towing under Section 8.3. Within the hour, my phone buzzed with an automated confirmation. "Your issue will be discussed at the next HOA meeting on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Finally. Progress. Or so I thought. That Wednesday, the clubhouse was packed. Folding chairs scraped the tiled floor, coffee cups clinked, and people whispered in low tones. The air conditioner hummed just loud enough to drown out the tension. I sat near the back, watching Karen glide in like a queen entering her throne room, floral dress, pearls, that perfect fake smile plastered on her face. She waved to a few board members, kissed cheeks, whispered something that made them chuckle. The meeting began with the usual HOA nonsense, landscaping budgets, new pool chairs, some nonsense about mailbox paint color. And then, halfway through the agenda, the chairwoman cleared her throat. Next issue, parking violation complaint, Unit 27. All heads turned toward me. Karen tilted her head dramatically, as if this were a personal attack. Yes, she said sweetly, that's the complaint my dear neighbor Daniel filed against my son. Her son. She said it like he was a helpless child, not a grown man with a sports car worth more than my mortgage. The chairwoman nodded. Mr. Grant, would you like to speak first? I stood up, steady and calm. Yes, thank you. Over the past 3 weeks, a red Porsche belonging to Karen Whitmore's son, Tyler, has been parking in my assigned spot. Despite repeated polite requests and written complaints, this violation continues. I have photo and video evidence. Karen's eyes narrowed slightly. I continued. I've followed all HOA rules. Section 8.3 clearly allows towing for unauthorized use of an assigned space. A few neighbors nodded. Some whispered in agreement. But then Karen rose to her feet, holding a tissue like she was about to cry. I'm sorry, everyone, she began, her voice trembling with theatrical sadness. I just can't believe we're wasting time on this. My son is a student who occasionally visits. If he parked there, it must have been by mistake. I clenched my jaw. By mistake, I said. For 3 straight weeks. She smiled, the kind of smile that made your blood pressure rise. Well, Daniel, perhaps you could be more understanding. You don't even have a family, so maybe you don't know what it's like to have teenagers learning responsibility. Gasps rippled through the room. The chairwoman cleared her throat awkwardly. Let's stay civil, please. Karen pressed on, her tone sugary and cutting. We all know Daniel can be particular about small things. He once filed a complaint about trash cans being left out too long. Laughter broke out from a few of her allies. I felt my face heat up, but I didn't respond. Instead, I took out my phone, opened the video, and hit play. The screen showed Tyler's Porsche pulling into my spot, the camera timestamp clear, the same time every morning. Then a second clip, him laughing, flipping me off as he peeled out of the driveway. The laughter in the room stopped cold. Karen's fake smile faltered. That could be anyone, she stammered. You can't prove. License plate, I interrupted. It's registered to your son. Silence. The chairwoman looked uncomfortable. All right, we'll review the footage and decide what action to take. Karen turned sharply to her, whispering something I couldn't hear. The chairwoman nodded nervously. And that's when I realized Karen owned this board. The meeting adjourned without a single resolution. No fines. No warning. No towing. I approached the chairwoman afterward. So what happens next? She avoided my eyes. We'll talk to Tyler and see if it happens again. I laughed bitterly. You mean you'll wait until it's convenient for her? Her silence was answer enough. That night, as I walked home, Karen appeared from behind her white picket fence like a ghost with lipstick. Daniel, she said sweetly. A word. I stopped on the sidewalk. If this is about your son. She stepped closer, her perfume thick in the air. You made quite a scene tonight. The HOA doesn't appreciate hostility. Hostility. I said incredulously. Your son vandalized my car. Oh, Please, she scoffed, dropping the sweet tone. You're lucky he didn't file his complaint first. I frowned. What are you talking about? Her eyes gleamed. He said you threatened him. There's a witness. My stomach turned cold. That's a lie. She smiled. Prove it. Then she turned and walked away, heels clicking like a metronome of menace. The next morning, I found something new. My mailbox had been knocked sideways, not broken, but dented, like someone had slammed it with a bat. Inside, a single folded note. Drop it, Daniel. Or next time it won't be the mailbox. I stood there, note trembling in my hand. The sun was just rising, painting the street in golden light, yet everything felt darker than ever. Later that day, I received an email from the HOA. Your complaint has been noted. Please refrain from personal disputes. The matter is closed. Closed. Just like that. Karen had won again. That evening, as I took my trash out, Karen was out front watering her perfectly arranged tulips. She didn't even look at me, but her voice floated across the hedge. You know, she said casually, people who make trouble around here don't last long. I froze. Is that a threat? She chuckled softly. Just advice. Oh, and Tyler mentioned your little camera setup. The HOA might see that as privacy violation. Would be such a shame if you were fined for that. I turned slowly to face her. You can manipulate everyone else, Karen. But not me. Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Then, with her perfect composure restored, she said, "Good night, Daniel," and went inside. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window, watching that cursed red Porsche glimmer under the streetlight. Each reflection of its surface felt like mockery. Each sound outside made me jump. Around 2 a.m., the roar of an engine shattered the silence. Tyler's Porsche again, speeding down the street, tires screeching as he swung into my spot. He revved the engine, loud enough to shake the windows. I stood there in the dark, fist clenched, whispering, "Keep laughing, kid. Keep laughing." When the engine finally went silent, I grabbed my phone, ready to record, and noticed something strange in my mailbox slot. An envelope. Cream-colored. No stamp. Just my name written in careful block letters. I pulled it out. Inside was a single page labeled "Confidential," the HOA's internal letterhead. Below, a short note. If you want to know the truth about Karen, read this before the next meeting. My pulse quickened. Who sent this? Why secretly? I looked around, but the street was empty. Only the quiet hum of crickets and the faint ticking of a cooling Porsche engine. I locked my door, sat down at my kitchen table, and slowly unfolded the paper. Inside was a set of emails, all from Karen's HOA address, deleting parking fines, rewriting rules, and protecting one name over and over again. Tyler Whitmore. And in the corner of one message, I saw something even more shocking. The HOA president's signature approving every one of them. For a long time, I just sat there staring at those printed emails under the kitchen light, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the room. Each message was worse than the last. Deleted fines. Altered records. Forged approvals. And every single one traced back to the same people, Karen Whitmore and Thomas Avery, the HOA president. The pattern was obvious. Anytime Tyler violated a rule, the incident vanished. Noise complaints. Speeding tickets. Parking violations. Even one note labeled, "Property damage," unresolved. All deleted. All signed off by Thomas. The emails were dated months back. Meaning this wasn't a one-time thing. This was habitual cover-up. And whoever left this file in my mailbox, they knew. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Someone inside the HOA wanted me to see this. Someone who couldn't expose it themselves. I printed a few copies, hid one in my desk, another in my glove compartment, and took the rest to work. Every instinct screamed caution. Because now, I wasn't just dealing with a spoiled teenager or a nosy neighbor. I was dealing with corruption. That evening, as I pulled into the street, I saw Karen standing outside again, perfect posture, pruning shears in hand, trimming her already perfect roses. The Porsche was gone today. A rare mercy. She waved sweetly. Evening, Daniel. No more car drama, I hope. Her tone was laced with sarcasm. I smiled thinly. Not today. But inside, my mind was racing. If Karen and Thomas had rigged the system, how many other residents had they hurt? How many fines, warnings, or votes had been falsified? I needed proof, not just papers, but hard evidence. So that night, I went digging. The HOA website had a member-only portal for residents. Password protected, but nothing a little guesswork couldn't handle. Karen had mentioned once during a block party that her favorite flowers were lilies. So I tried it, Lily 123. Access granted. Inside, I found archived newsletters, budgets, and meeting summaries, but one folder caught my eye. Board use only. It was password locked too. This time, I thought of the other name from the emails, Thomas Avery. His Wi-Fi network was TomGolf77. I tried it. It opened. Inside were scanned documents, invoices, receipts, transfers, all showing HOA funds going to private accounts. Thousands of dollars labeled as community landscaping. All authorized by Karen Whitmore. My heart pounded as I scrolled. I took screenshots of everything. Halfway through, I noticed one PDF titled Incident Log, Restricted. It listed every resident who'd ever been fined or reported. And right there, third from the bottom, was an entry that made me stop breathing. Ramirez, Maria, property damage, harassment, forced eviction, 2022. Mrs. Ramirez. My elderly neighbor, the same woman who told me Karen had forced someone out before. The HOA had filed her as the offender. Not the victim. They'd rewritten history. I realized right then, this wasn't an HOA. It was a kingdom. And Karen was the queen. The next morning, I went to see Mrs. Ramirez. Her small garden smelled of lavender and old books. She looked up from watering her plants and smiled faintly. Oh, Daniel. You look troubled. I told her everything, the emails, the fake records, the missing funds. Her eyes widened but not in surprise. I knew it, she whispered. They've been doing this for years. When my husband got sick, Karen said she'd help reduce our fines. But instead, she raised them, said we were in violation for unapproved medical equipment. That's how she got us out. Her voice cracked. We lost the house. Moved here after he passed. I felt a surge of anger. This wasn't petty neighborhood politics anymore. This was abuse of power. I asked her who she thought might have left the file in my mailbox. She hesitated, glancing toward the clubhouse. There's one man who's been on the board longer than Karen, the treasurer, George Lang. Quiet man. Keeps to himself. But I've seen him argue with her more than once. I made a note. Thank you, Maria. I think it's time someone returned the favor. That evening, I saw the Porsche again, polished, smug, and shining in my spot as if mocking me. But this time, I didn't feel anger. I felt strategy. I walked over, took a few fresh photos, and called the towing company. The dispatcher sounded tired. Sir, you're sure it's unauthorized? HOA's okay with this? I smiled. According to Section 8.3 of the bylaws, absolutely. All right, she said. We'll send a truck first thing tomorrow morning. Perfect. But I wasn't done. That night, I printed enlarged copies of the incriminating emails and slipped one under George Lang's door with a note. You're not alone. Wednesday. 7 p.m. Bring the truth. The next day dawned quiet, too quiet. I sipped my coffee by the window as sunlight broke through the blinds. And right on schedule, Tyler's Porsche rode in, slow, smooth, arrogant. I watched him step out, stretch, and toss his keys in the air. Then, moments later, the sound I'd been waiting for, a low diesel rumble down the street. The tow truck turned the corner, headlights slicing through the morning haze. I stepped outside casually, pretending to check my mail. The tow driver, a burly guy in a reflective vest, nodded at me. You Daniel? Yeah. He grinned. Nice car, by the way. Guess it's about to get a new parking space, impound lot. Tyler came running from the porch, half-dressed, shouting, Hey. What are you doing? That's my car. Not your space, the driver said flatly. Karen stormed out seconds later, her robe fluttering, phone in hand. You can't do this. That's private property. The driver shrugged. Talk to the HOA. We got the call. Her eyes snapped toward me. You did this. I didn't deny it. You ignored the rules. I enforced them. Her face turned red. You'll regret this, Daniel. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Neighbors were peeking out from porches and windows. Phones were recording. And for the first time in weeks, I felt the balance shift, just slightly, in my favor. As the Porsche was lifted onto the tow bed, the early sunlight gleamed off its hood like justice made of chrome. Karen stood there trembling, clutching her phone, dialing frantically. I just smiled. See you at the next meeting, Karen. That night, as the neighborhood buzzed with gossip, I sat by the window again, waiting for retaliation. But none came. No knocks. No shouts. No notes. Just silence. And that silence felt dangerous. Because deep down, I knew people like Karen don't stay quiet. They plot. They plan. They wait for the next strike. As I turned off the lights, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Nice move. But she's calling the police in the morning. You might want to be ready. When I woke the next morning, I knew something was coming. The air felt different, charged, heavy, like the calm before a storm. Outside, the early sun glinted off the tow truck's steel bed parked halfway down the street. The driver leaned against the hood, sipping coffee, waiting for my signal. And right there, gleaming arrogantly in my assigned spot, was Tyler's red Porsche, like it never learned its lesson. I stood by the window for a moment, coffee in hand, heart thumping in rhythm with the ticking clock. Then, slowly, I nodded toward the driver. He climbed into the cab, started the engine, and began backing up toward the Porsche. By the time the first metal hook clamped under the bumper, the sound of a slamming door echoed across the street. Karen. She came storming down her walkway in her silk robe, hair a mess, fury in every step. What do you think you're doing? The tow driver barely looked up. Just doing my job, ma'am. Vehicle parked illegally in a marked space. Karen pointed her finger like a weapon. That's my son's car. You can't touch it. The driver shrugged. I got a call and written authorization. You can file a dispute later. Karen spun toward me. Daniel. I stepped out onto my porch, calm as a monk. Morning, Karen. You called them. Of course, I said evenly. 3 weeks. Same violation. HOA rules allow towing without notice. Her mouth fell open. You're insane. You think you can just enforce the rules you helped write? I interrupted. Yes, I do. Her voice dropped to a hiss. "You'll regret this." By now, neighbors were gathering. Garage doors opened. Phones came out. The kind of suburban audience that lives for spectacle. Mrs. Ramirez stood quietly by her mailbox, arms folded, watching. Across the street, a jogger slowed down, pulling out earbuds. Karen's son, Tyler, burst out of the house wearing gym shorts and a t-shirt, hair disheveled. "Mom, what's going on?" He froze when he saw the tow truck already raising the Porsche's back wheels. "What the hell?" he shouted, running toward it. "Hey! Put it down." The driver didn't flinch. "Not my car, kid." Karen turned to her son. "Don't worry, sweetie. He's not getting away with this." I leaned against the porch railing. "Actually, I think I am." Tyler glared at me. "You're pathetic." "You just wait, my dad's gonna." I cut him off. "You mean the same dad who's never once parked here?" "Yeah, I'll wait." He took a step toward me, fist clenched. Karen grabbed his arm. "Tyler, no. Not here." The crowd murmured. Someone whispered, finally, someone standing up to her. For the first time, Karen seemed unsure. The camera phones recording every second were no longer under her control. She straightened her robe, pulled out her phone, and started dialing. "Who are you calling?" I asked, though I already knew. "The police," she spat. "You just committed theft." I smiled faintly. "Actually, I committed compliance. Section 8.3 of HOA bylaws. Look it up." Her eyes widened, she knew the rule. But she said nothing, only muttered into the phone, pacing in fury. Meanwhile, the tow truck finished its work. The Porsche sat tilted on the metal ramp, wheels locked, helpless. The driver climbed out, paperwork in hand. "Sign here, sir." I took the clipboard and signed, the pen shaking only slightly. "Where's it headed?" "County impound lot," he said. "You'll need HOA authorization to release it." Karen overheard and shrieked, "Authorization? I am the HOA." The driver blinked. "Lady, I don't care if you're the Queen of England. It's already strapped." A ripple of laughter broke through the crowd. Karen turned scarlet. Minutes later, the distant sound of sirens cut through the air. 2 police cruisers rolled up, lights flashing, blue and red reflections dancing off mailboxes and windows. Karen hurried toward them like they were her personal security team. "Officers. Thank God you're here. That man," she pointed dramatically at me, "had my son's car stolen." The officers exchanged looks. One, a tall man with gray at his temples, adjusted his sunglasses. "All right, ma'am, slow down. You're saying this is your property?" Karen nodded rapidly. "Yes. My son's car, parked right in front of our home, and he had it taken without permission." The officer turned to me. "Sir." I kept my voice steady. "The car was illegally parked in my assigned space. Documented multiple times. HOA rules allow towing without notice. I have photos, videos, and formal complaints filed." The officer raised an eyebrow. "You have documentation?" I handed him my phone. He scrolled through the images, nodding slowly. Karen scoffed. "Oh, please, those can be faked. He's been harassing us for weeks." The officer looked up. "Harassing? Any police reports?" Karen hesitated. "Not yet, but..." "Then it's not harassment," he said flatly. Her face twisted. "You don't understand who you're dealing with." The officer sighed. "Ma'am, the tow was legal. It's a civil matter between HOA members. Not criminal." She blinked, stunned. "So you're not arresting him?" "No, ma'am," the officer said. But you might want to review your community's rules before making false reports. The crowd chuckled softly again. Karen's face went pale, then red. You're making a mistake, she hissed. Do you know who his father is? The officer frowned. Who's his father? Jonathan Pierce. Pierce Development Group, she said proudly. He built half the houses in this neighborhood. You can't impound his son's car without consequences. The officer gave her a long look, unimpressed. Ma'am, nobody's above the law, not even developers. I bit back a smirk. But Karen wasn't done. She pointed at me again. Fine. You think you've won. You'll see what happens when the HOA meets again. You're finished here, Daniel. I shrugged. You've said that before. She turned away, muttering furiously as the police cars pulled off. Tyler stood frozen, watching his car disappear down the street, the hum of the tow truck fading into the distance. He looked at me, not angry now, but humiliated. You'll regret this, he said quietly. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. No, Tyler. You will. Because next time, it won't be a tow truck. It will be consequences you can't buy your way out of. He glared but said nothing. Then he stormed back inside, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. By noon, the video was everywhere. Someone had uploaded it to the neighborhood Facebook group. Title: HOA Queen loses it after son's Porsche gets towed. Hundreds of comments poured in. Finally. About time someone stood up to her. That guy deserves a medal. Karen didn't show her face for the rest of the day. But as night fell, I noticed something: a black SUV parked at the corner of the street. Engine running. Lights off. For hours, it sat there. Watching. Waiting. At midnight, I drew my blinds, telling myself it was just paranoia. But deep down, I knew Karen wasn't done. She'd lost the battle, sure, but she'd never lose quietly. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Enjoy your victory, hero. Tomorrow morning, cops are coming. And this time, they're not leaving without you. The next morning, I woke to pounding on the door. Not the polite, neighborly kind, this was the authoritative kind. 3 sharp knocks. A pause. Then 3 more. I opened my eyes, heart already racing. Through the blinds, I saw blue and red lights flickering against the walls. 2 police cruisers. Again. Only this time, there was no tow truck, no crowd. Just silence and authority. I pulled on a shirt, ran a hand through my hair, and opened the door. 2 officers stood there. One of them, the same gray-tempered cop from yesterday, nodded curtly. Mr. Grant. We need to ask you a few questions. Karen stood behind them, arms folded, looking far too pleased. She wasn't even pretending to be innocent this time. Sure, I said carefully. What's this about? The younger officer held up a clipboard. We received a report of property damage and harassment. We'll need you to come down to the station to make a statement. I let out a quiet breath. From her, I assume. The gray-haired officer didn't answer, but his expression said enough. Karen stepped forward, her voice syrupy sweet. It's nothing personal, Daniel. I just believe in accountability. You've been quite aggressive lately. I looked her dead in the eye. Aggressive. I followed your rules. The same rules you break daily. She smirked. We'll let the police decide that, won't we? I rode quietly in the back of the patrol car, hands clasped tight. Not cuffed, but not free either. Through the window, I watched the neighborhood fade into distance, those neat lawns, white fences, and curious faces watching from behind curtains. When we reached the station, the officers led me to a small interview room, pale walls, one metal chair, and a camera in the corner. The younger officer set down his file. "Look, this isn't formal yet. We just need to get your side." I nodded. "Understood." He opened the file, pulling out a series of photos, my car, the Porsche, and one image that made my stomach twist. My dashboard camera. The footage showing the Porsche being towed. It had been emailed to the police anonymously. Karen was playing chess, not checkers. "Did you record this?" the officer asked. "Yes. For my safety." "Did you post it online?" "No. Someone else did." The officer glanced at his partner. "Mrs. Whitmore claims you've been stalking her family, recording them without consent, and threatening her son." I laughed softly. "Stalking? She's the one vandalizing property. I have proof of that." "Proof?" I reached into my folder and slid the copies of the HOA emails across the table. The officer frowned, flipping through them. "These are HOA communications. Internal ones," I said. "Someone left them in my mailbox. They show your complainant, Mrs. Whitmore, and the HOA president erasing fines, misusing funds, and covering up her son's violations." The room went silent. The officer looked at me carefully. "You sure you want this on record?" "Absolutely," I said. "Because this isn't about parking anymore. It's about corruption." He exchanged a look with his partner, then gathered the papers. "All right, Mr. Grant. Sit tight." An hour passed. Then 2. When the door finally opened, it wasn't the officers who entered. It was a tall man in a charcoal suit, silver cufflinks, and an expression carved out of arrogance. "Mr. Grant," he said smoothly. "I'm Jonathan Pierce. I represent my son, Tyler, and Mrs. Whitmore." "Of course. The developer himself." He sat across from me, calm and deliberate. "I understand there's been an unfortunate misunderstanding between you and my family." I said nothing. He smiled thinly. "See, in our community, we prefer to resolve things quietly. You seem like a smart man. Surely, you know how messy these things can get." He slid a folded check across the table. The number made my pulse skip, $25,000. "For damages," he said. "And an agreement that you withdraw your complaint against the HOA. Consider it a peace offering." I looked at the check, then at him. "You're offering me money to stay silent." He shrugged. "Let's not call it that." "And if I refuse?" His smile vanished. "Then I can't guarantee your employment status won't come under review. My firm does quite a bit of work with your company." I leaned forward. "You think you can buy everyone, don't you?" He tilted his head. "Not everyone. Just the ones who know their place." That did it. I stood slowly, pushing the check back across the table. "You have no idea who you're talking to." His brow furrowed. "Excuse me." I smiled, the kind of smile I hadn't used in years. "Let's just say, you picked the wrong guy to intimidate." Before he could respond, the door opened again, the gray-haired officer. "Mr. Pierce, I think we're done here." Pierce scowled. "This isn't over." "Oh, it's just beginning," I said quietly. They let me go an hour later. No charges. No record. Just a warning to keep things civil. When I got home, my street was eerily silent. No kids playing. No neighbors chatting. Just that unsettling suburban stillness that hides gossip under the surface. Karen's curtains twitched as I parked. She was watching me. Waiting. I pretended not to notice. Inside my mailbox was another note, smaller this time, folded neatly. "You handled yourself well. But be careful. They know more about you than you think." No signature. No return address. I stared at the note for a long time. Then I looked around. The black SUV was gone, replaced by a different one, silver, tinted windows, parked one house down. My instinct screamed, "Watch your back." That night, I called Mrs. Ramirez and told her everything. She listened quietly, then said, "They're scared. You've cornered them. But power like that doesn't fall easily." "I'm not backing down," I said. She hesitated. "Then you need allies." "I have evidence." "You'll need more than that," she whispered. "Meet me tomorrow evening. There's someone you should talk to." The next day, I drove to the impound lot to confirm the Porsche's status. The clerk looked up from his desk and said, "Funny thing, someone already tried to pull the car out this morning. Paid in cash. Didn't have the paperwork, though." "Who?" I asked. He shrugged. "Didn't give a name. Left when I asked for ID. But he was driving a black SUV." My blood ran cold. Karen wasn't sending lawyers anymore. She was sending watchers. That night, Mrs. Ramirez called again. "Come to my place," she whispered. "And come alone." When I arrived, she was standing by the window, blinds drawn, clutching a small USB drive. "This," she said, "is from the HOA treasurer, George Lang. He's finally ready to talk." "What's on it?" I asked. She pressed it into my hand. "Proof of everything. But be careful. If they find out you have it." Her eyes flicked toward the street. Headlights flashed once, then disappeared. As I turned the USB in my hand, my phone buzzed, an unknown number again. "You shouldn't have refused the deal, Daniel. You don't realize who your neighbor really is." I looked out the window and froze. Karen was standing on her porch, smiling. And beside her, shaking hands with Jonathan Pierce, was the chief of police. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I didn't sleep either. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the small USB drive Mrs. Ramirez had given me, its dull metal casing catching faint glimmers of sunlight through the blinds. It felt heavier than it should, like holding a live grenade. My mind replayed her words over and over. "If they find out you have it, it's over." Outside, the neighborhood looked the same, calm, suburban, peaceful, but it felt like a stage set, too perfect, too quiet, hiding the chaos beneath. Karen's porch was empty, but her curtains were drawn tight. The silver SUV was still parked near the corner, engine cold, but I knew someone was inside. They were watching. I plugged the USB into my laptop and held my breath. A folder popped open, HOA_date_confidential. Inside were dozens of files, scanned checks, recorded board meetings, and one folder labeled Special Authorizations. When I opened it, my stomach turned. It wasn't just fines or funds this time. It was contracts. Karen and the HOA president, Thomas Avery, had been approving secret payments from a company called Pierce Development Consulting, Jonathan Pierce's firm, in exchange for zoning support, property easements, and construction permits. Essentially, the HOA wasn't managing the neighborhood. It was laundering influence. And the signatures. All real. Karen's. Thomas's. Even George Lang's, the treasurer. But the deeper I scrolled, the worse it got. One folder labeled Incident Suppression held voice recordings. I clicked the first one. Karen's voice came through, muffled but distinct. "If he complains again, I'll fine him until he moves." Same tactic as the Ramirez's. Then another recording, Thomas's voice. "You know who's funding this project, Karen. Don't bite the hand that feeds you." And then, a third one, newer. This time, Jonathan Pierce himself. "Under the situation. Quietly. I don't want my name attached." That was it. Proof of bribery, manipulation, and coercion. I exhaled slowly, hands trembling. This was enough to end them. But also enough to ruin anyone who touched it. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. You have something that belongs to us. Turn it in tonight. Clubhouse parking lot. 10 p.m. No name. No threats. Just command. I stared at the message, pulse pounding. Whoever sent it knew. Before I could react, there was a loud knock on my door. 3 times, sharp, steady, familiar. I froze. Another knock. Mr. Grant, a voice called. Police. Open up. Through the peephole, I saw the same officer from before, the gray-haired one. But this time, his face looked tense, tired. I opened the door slowly. Morning, officer. Mind if I come in? He asked. Do I have a choice? He sighed. Probably not. He stepped inside, glanced around, then lowered his voice. You didn't get this from me. But you're in over your head. I frowned. What's that supposed to mean? He looked me dead in the eye. Pierce isn't just a developer. He's on the city zoning board. He funds half of the county's political campaigns. The people backing Karen. They are not neighbors, they are connected. I stared at him. So what are you saying? That I should roll over and let them destroy people. He hesitated. Then said quietly, I'm saying the last guy who crossed them, the one who exposed their finances, his house accidentally caught fire. My throat went dry. You're serious? He nodded. And here's the thing, I checked your record. You don't exist before 2017. No address, no tax file, nothing. I froze. He wasn't wrong. He stepped closer. So tell me, Mr. Grant, who are you really? For a long moment, I said nothing. Then I smiled faintly. You ever hear of the Federal Housing Integrity Division? He blinked. What? It's an internal task force, I said evenly. We investigate HOA corruption, zoning fraud, and developer kickbacks. And I'm one of their field auditors. His eyes widened slightly. You're federal. Not officially, I said. Off the books. We go where the paper trails don't. He looked stunned, then whispered, Does Karen know? Not yet, I said. And if you want to stay safe, she never should. He exhaled. You're playing a dangerous game. I nodded. Yeah. But the game's been rigged for too long. He studied me for a moment, then quietly handed me a small envelope. If anything happens, call this number. Don't go through 911. Then he left, no explanation, no goodbye, just the sound of the door clicking shut behind him. The rest of the day dragged like a storm cloud. Karen didn't come outside. Neither did Tyler. But the SUV circled the block twice, slow and deliberate. At dusk, I went to see Mrs. Ramirez again. When she opened the door, her eyes darted nervously past me. Are you being followed? She whispered. Probably. She pulled me inside. The lights were off except for a single lamp. George Lang called me. He's scared. They found out he leaked the files. My stomach dropped. Where is he? They called an emergency board meeting tonight, she said. At the clubhouse. I checked my phone, 9:42 p.m. The message from earlier flashed in my mind, clubhouse parking lot. 10 p.m. It wasn't a request. It was a trap. I stood. I'm going. Mrs. Ramirez grabbed my arm. Don't. You don't know what they'll do. I smiled grimly. No. But I know what I'll do. The clubhouse lights glowed faintly through the trees as I approached, the air thick with humidity and tension. A few cars were parked outside, Karen's white Lexus, Thomas's black sedan, and one unmarked SUV with tinted windows. I parked a block away, slipped the USB into my pocket, and walked toward the lot. Voices drifted through the open window, Karen's sharp tone cutting through the air. "He's dangerous, Tom. He's not who he says he is." Then another voice, "Pierce. Then handle it. Tonight. Before this gets bigger." I stepped closer, heart hammering. Through the glass, I could see them, the entire board, gathered around the table. Karen's manicured hand slammed against a stack of papers. And right in front of her sat George Lang, pale, sweating, silent. He looked terrified. Karen leaned close to him. "You leaked those files, didn't you?" He shook his head quickly. No, I swear." Pierce cut in coldly. "Then why did the Federal Division request your expense reports this morning?" Lang's face went white. Karen's voice dropped to a whisper. "You're finished." I recorded every word. But before I could move, a motion light flicked on. The SUV door opened. A man stepped out, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark jacket, scanning the area. His eyes locked onto me instantly. "Hey," he shouted. "Who's there?" I turned and bolted for the side path, adrenaline surging. Gravel crunched underfoot, branches whipped past, my pulse pounding in my ears. Behind me, footsteps gave chase. I reached my car, dove in, and slammed the door. The engine roared to life. In the rearview mirror, the man stood under the light, phone pressed to his ear. And then I saw it, the license plate on the SUV. PDG 777. Pierce Development Group. As I sped away, my phone buzzed again. A new message. "We warned you, Daniel. Now it's not just about the parking spot anymore. It's about survival." I looked up, headlights appeared behind me. Fast. Closing in. I didn't sleep that night. By the time dawn hit, my living room looked like a detective's war room, printouts pinned to corkboards, maps spread across the coffee table, and the USB drive still plugged into my laptop, replaying those damning recordings on loop. Each word from Karen's voice burned deeper. Under the situation. Quietly. "He's not who he says he is." She was right. But she had no idea what kind of man she was dealing with. At 8 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Mrs. Ramirez. Her voice trembled. "Daniel, you need to come. Now." I grabbed my keys and ran across the street. Her blinds were drawn, her face pale. She pulled me inside and shut the door behind us. "George Lang," she whispered. "He's gone." I froze. "What do you mean, gone?" "Police found his car at the lake," she said, eyes glistening. "Engine running. Door open. They are saying suicide, but..." Her voice cracked. I didn't need her to finish the sentence. George was terrified last night. He wouldn't have taken his own life. He'd been silenced. I went back home shaking with anger. I wasn't scared anymore. I was furious. I opened my laptop and started compiling everything, the documents, the voice clips, the bank transfers. For each file, I added context, names, timestamps, signatures. By noon, I had a 200-page report titled Maplewood Corruption Dossier. Then I uploaded a redacted version to a private cloud drive, insurance. Next, I made 3 flash drives. One for me. One for Mrs. Ramirez. And one for a contact in the Federal Housing Division, a man named Agent Calabros. We'd worked together years ago. If anyone could validate this, it was him. I sent him a coded message. Pierce Project. HOA breach confirmed. Files incoming. Within 10 minutes, he replied. Understood. Proceed with discretion. Public exposure soon. That same afternoon, Karen finally showed herself. She was standing at the end of my driveway, wearing dark sunglasses and that same pastel dress she wore to every HOA meeting. I stepped outside before she could speak. "Morning," I said. Her smile was sharp. "You've caused quite a mess, Daniel." "I'm cleaning one up, actually." She tilted her head. "You think people will believe you? You're a nobody. No family, no background, no record before 2017. Her words hung heavy. So she'd done her digging too. "You really should have picked someone else to bully," I said calmly. Her smile faltered. "Careful, Daniel. You're playing a dangerous game." "So are you," I replied, stepping closer. "Except I already know the ending." For the first time, she looked uneasy. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll see," I said. At tonight's HOA meeting. By sunset, word had spread, a special meeting called by Karen herself, to address the recent false accusations and social media slander. Every resident showed up. The clubhouse buzzed with whispers and tension. Phones were out. Eyes were everywhere. Karen took her usual seat at the head of the table, flanked by Thomas Avery and two board members who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her tone perfectly rehearsed. "It seems misinformation has been circulating regarding our HOA's integrity. I'd like to clear the air once and for all." I stood near the back, letting her talk, calm, patient, waiting for my cue. She went on for 5 minutes, claiming I doctored evidence, violated privacy, and targeted her family out of jealousy. Then she said the line that pushed me over the edge. "I've always stood for fairness, honesty, and community." I stepped forward. "Then you won't mind if we play something?" The crowd turned. Karen blinked. "Excuse me." I walked to the front, plugged a small speaker into my phone, and hit play. Her voice filled the room. "If he complains again, I'll fine him until he moves. You know who's funding this project, Karen. Don't bite the hand that feeds you." Handle the situation quietly. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, outrage. Karen's face went pale. That's not real. That's a fake." I cut her off. The recordings were found on the HOA's internal files. Along with this, I held up the printed checks and bank transfers. Proof that Pierce Development paid this board over $120,000 for zoning influence. Thomas Avery jumped up. "That's absurd." "Really?" I said. "Because your signature's on every one of them." He opened his mouth, then shut it, eyes darting toward Karen. She was trembling now, her control slipping fast. "This is defamation," she shouted. "You can't just..." "I can," I said. "And I already have." I clicked a button on my phone. "This entire presentation is being live-streamed." Karen's head snapped up. "What?" I turned the screen toward her. The YouTube stream counter blinked, 3,000 watching. Her jaw dropped. The room exploded again, residents shouting questions, waving phones, snapping photos of the documents. "Is this true? Did you take money from Pierce? You forced families out." Thomas Avery backed away from the podium, sweating. Karen slammed her palm on the table. "Enough. You people have no idea what it takes to run this neighborhood." Her voice cracked. The queen had finally lost her crown. But before I could speak again, the doors burst open. 2 uniformed officers entered, one of them the same gray-haired cop. Everyone fell silent. Karen straightened, relief flooding her face. "Officers. Finally. Arrest this man for hacking private systems." The gray-haired officer ignored her. He walked right up to me, eyes steady. "Mr. Grant?" he asked. "Yes." He nodded once. You're going to want to see this. He turned to the crowd. Everyone, please stay calm. He handed me a folded sheet of paper. Inside, a printed email header. Sender, Agent Caleb Ross, Federal Housing Division. Subject, Operation Maplewood, active investigation. Karen's face drained of color. Operation what? I looked up. You should sit down, Karen. Before I could say more, a loud crash shattered the moment one of the windows in the back burst inward. A rock clattered across the floor, wrapped in paper. The note inside read, "Stop now, or you'll end up like Lang." Gasps rippled through the room. The gray-haired officer backed orders, radioing backup. Karen stumbled back, her mask finally cracking. "This is madness," she whispered. "You're ruining everything." I looked at her, calm as still. "No, Karen. You did that yourself." As police sealed the building, I glanced at my phone, a new text from Caleb Ross. "Stay inside. We've traced the money trail. Someone in that room isn't who they claim to be." I looked around, at Karen, at Thomas, at the other board members. And then my eyes landed on the gray-haired officer. He was already staring back at me. Unblinking. The HOA clubhouse was chaos. Residents shouting. Papers flying. Police radios crackling. The sound of the broken window still echoed through the room, a reminder that the war had finally come to the surface. Karen stood pale and trembling at the head of the table, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Thomas Avery, the HOA president, looked even worse, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead, eyes darting toward the exit. And across the room, the gray-haired officer, the same one who had warned me days ago, was staring at me with something cold in his expression now. Something that didn't match his earlier concern. "Everyone, stay calm," he barked, stepping forward. "We are locking down the building until backup arrives." Karen latched onto his words like a drowning woman to a rope. "Thank you, officer. Finally someone's doing their job." He nodded slightly, but his eyes never left me. "Mr. Grant," he said, "hand over your phone. Now." I frowned. "Excuse me." "For safety," he said. That live stream could compromise an investigation. I hesitated. Something about his tone had changed, it wasn't protective anymore. It was controlled. Then I noticed it, the faint bulge of an earpiece under his collar. He wasn't here to protect anyone. He was reporting to someone. "Which department are you with again?" I asked carefully. He smiled faintly. "Let's just say I answer higher than City Hall." Karen stepped closer, sensing advantage. "You see. Even the authorities are sick of your games, Daniel." Her voice was shaking, but she was trying to sound triumphant. I didn't move. "You're not with the local PD, are you?" He said nothing, just raised the hand slowly. "The USB drive, too." Behind him, I saw Thomas Avery inching toward the side door, clutching his briefcase like it was full of gold. Everything clicked at once. The officer wasn't here to arrest anyone. He was here to recover evidence. I stepped back. "You're working for Pierce." A flicker of surprise crossed his face, then it hardened into a smirk. "You're smarter than you look." He reached for his gun. Gasps filled the room. Residents screamed, ducking under tables. Karen shrieked, "What are you doing?" He didn't even look at her. "Cleaning up a mess." That was all I needed to hear. I dove behind a chair just as he fired a warning shot into the ceiling, plaster rained down like snow. Panic erupted. Someone pulled the fire alarm, red lights flashed across the room. The live stream camera kept rolling. I crawled low, ducking between chairs, then lunged for the table, grabbing the microphone. "Everyone, get out through the kitchen door," I yelled. People started rushing that way, But Karen froze where she stood, eyes wide with terror. "Do something," she screamed at Thomas, but he was already gone, bolting out the back like a rat leaving a sinking ship. The officer advanced, gun steady. "Give me the drive, Daniel. You don't know who you're dealing with." "Oh, I do," I said, rising slowly. "A man on the wrong side of history." He aimed. Last chance. Before he could fire, a loud crack echoed, the fire sprinklers activated, raining water across the room. People screamed again, running past him. In the confusion, I slipped around the side table and tackled him to the ground. The gun skidded away, clattering under a chair. We struggled, his elbow jammed into my ribs, my hand gripping his wrist, forcing it away from the weapon. The live stream camera toppled, capturing only flashes of the fight, chaos, shouts, water pouring down like a storm. Then, a deafening bang. Both of us froze. The gun had gone off. He gasped, looking down. The bullet had grazed his shoulder. Before he could recover, I kicked the weapon away, grabbed the USB from my pocket, and sprinted toward the door. Behind me, Karen was screaming, not at me, but at the officer. "You idiot. You were supposed to handle this quietly." He snarled, pressing his hand against his wound. "Tell your boss the deal's off. He can clean up his own mess." She blinked, horrified. "What?" He spat blood onto the floor. "Pierce isn't saving you. You're all expendable." Outside, rain hammered the parking lot. The flashing fire alarm lights reflected off puddles, sirens wailing in the distance. I ran toward my car, but before I could reach it, another black SUV screeched around the corner, tires slicing water. The door swung open. Jonathan Pierce stepped out, immaculate as ever in a dark coat, flanked by two men in suits. He looked almost amused. "You've been busy, Mr. Grant." I stopped, chest heaving. "You sent him in there, didn't you?" He smiled faintly. "A misunderstanding. I didn't authorize violence. But let's be honest, this got out of hand the moment you ignored my offer." "George Lang's death wasn't an accident," I said. His smile faded. "Watch your tone." "No. Watch yours. The feds are coming." He laughed softly. "You mean your friend Ross? He's been neutralized. Your little crusade dies here." He nodded to his men. "Get the drive." I slipped my hand into my jacket. "You'll have to shoot me first." Pierce's grin widened. "If that's what it takes." And then, blinding light. Headlights flooded the parking lot. Sirens wailed closer. 4 police cars surrounded us, doors flying open. "Drop it," an officer shouted. "Hands where I can see them." Pierce froze, turning. "What is this?" Then a voice came through a megaphone. Deep. Commanding. "Jonathan Pierce, you are under federal investigation for bribery, extortion, and obstruction of justice." He blinked in disbelief. "Who the hell?" From one of the cars stepped Agent Caleb Ross. Rain dripping off his coat, badge gleaming. "Surprise," I muttered. Ross approached calmly. "You didn't think we'd let you bury another whistleblower, did you?" Pierce's face twisted in rage. You can't prove anything." Ross smiled. "We don't have to. The live stream did it for us." Karen stumbled out of the clubhouse behind us, soaked and disoriented. "Jonathan, do something." He turned on her, eyes blazing. "You ruined everything. Do you have any idea what you've done?" She screamed, "You said you'd protect us." "Protect you," he spat. "You're the reason this fell apart." The agents moved in, cuffing the men in suits first. Pierce resisted, shouting about connections and power, but no one listened. Kara stood frozen, mascara running down her cheeks, watching the empire she built crumble in real time. Then she looked at me, hatred and disbelief mixing in her eyes. "You did this," she whispered. "You destroyed my family." I shook my head. "No, Karen. You did that the day you decided the rules didn't apply to you." As Pierce was pushed into a police car, he glared at me through the window. "This isn't over," he mouthed. Agent Ross turned to me. "You all right?" I nodded slowly, soaked, exhausted, but alive. "Yeah. Better than I've been in years." Ross gestured toward the clubhouse. "We'll clean up. The recordings, the evidence, it's all going to court." "You did good work, Daniel." I looked back toward the shattered window, where the last remnants of Karen's rain dripped in the rain. For the first time since this began, the neighborhood was silent. Not peaceful, but empty, like the moment after a storm. As Ross turned away, one of his agents approached him, whispering something. Ross's expression changed, serious, alarmed. He looked at me. "The drive you had, where is it?" I frowned. "It's right." I reached into my pocket. Empty. My heart stopped. Through the rain, I spotted someone slipping between the cars, hoodie, slim frame, moving fast. Tyler. Karen's son. And in his hand, the missing USB drive. Rain poured harder, turning the street into a river of flashing colors, red, blue, and white lights reflecting off every wet surface. The chaos of the arrestee paused around me, shouting officers, clicking handcuffs, radios barking orders. But I wasn't watching Pierce anymore. I was watching Tyler, Karen's son, as he slipped into the shadows at the edge of the parking lot, the USB drive glinting in his hand. He was running. "Tyler!" I shouted, breaking free from the agents. He turned once, his face pale in the rain, then bolted down the alley between two houses. I sprinted after him, shoes splashing through puddles, adrenaline pounding in my ears. He looked smaller than before, not the arrogant kid smacking behind the wheel of a Porsche, but scared. "Conrad! Stop!" I yelled again. "You don't understand what you're carrying." He shouted back, voice breaking, "You destroyed my mom. We tore through backyards, fences, and driveways." By the time I caught up, he'd slipped into the old maintenance shed near the community pool, the same one the HOA kept locked for years. The door slammed behind him. "Tyler!" I called, catching my breath. "Listen to me." Inside, I heard him rifling through boxes. Metal clanged. Then his voice, trembling but defiant. "You think you're the hero, huh? You think you saved this neighborhood." "I didn't do it to save the neighborhood," I said. "I did it to stop your mom from hurting people." "You humiliated her," he snapped. "You ruined everything." "She ruined it herself," I said quietly. "You saw what she did, Tyler. You know what those recordings mean." For a moment, there was silence, just the rain drumming on the tin roof. Then he whispered, "They said if I got this drive back, they'd fix everything. Make the charges disappear." My chest tightened. "Who said that?" He didn't answer. "Tyler, listen," I said, stepping closer. "You're being used, the same way they used your mom. Pierce never cared about her. Or you." "Liar," he shouted. I sighed. "Then why isn't he here right now? Why did he run when things got bad?" There was another pause. Then I heard him sniff, a soft sound buried beneath the rain. "You don't understand," he whispered. "Mom was trying to protect me. Pierce said if we helped him, I'd get a job at his company. A real future. She just wanted that for me." I swallowed hard. She wanted control, Tyler. And he gave it to her until it cost too much. "You can still make this right. Give me the drive." He didn't move. "Please, I said. People died because of what's on that drive. George Lang didn't kill himself, they made it look that way. If you keep protecting them, you're helping the same people who killed him. The silence stretched. Then, slowly, the door creaked open. Tyler stood there, soaked to the bone, eyes red, hands trembling. He held the USB out halfway. "Will this fix things?" he asked quietly. "It's a start," I said. He hesitated. Then, behind him, the shed lights flickered, and another shadow moved. I barely had time to shout, "Get down," before the door exploded inward. A man in a black raincoat lunged inside, gun raised. Tyler screamed, dropping the drive. I tackled him to the ground as a bullet tore through the doorway, splintering wood above our heads. The attacker stumbled in. It was the same gray-haired officer, blood seeping from his shoulder but fury burning in his eyes. "You should have stayed out of this, Grant," he snarled. He fired again, the bullet ricocheting off a pipe. Sparks flew. I grabbed the fallen wrench from the floor and swung, catching his wrist hard enough to make him drop the gun. He lunged at me, and we crashed into a pile of boxes. Tools clattered. Tyler crawled backward, terrified. "Run!" I shouted. "Go!" But instead, he grabbed the gun. His hands shook so badly the barrel wobbled. "Stop!" he yelled at the officer. The man froze, glaring. "You don't have it in you, kid." Tyler's lip trembled. "Maybe not. But you've ruined enough lives." I reached for the gun, my hand covering his. "Don't do it," I whispered. "You're not like them." For a long second, nobody moved. Rain dripped through the ceiling. The sirens grew closer. Then Tyler dropped the weapon. I caught it before it hit the ground and handed it off as Ross's team burst through the doorway, weapons drawn. "Freeze!" one shouted. The officer spun around, but he was outnumbered. They pinned him against the wall in seconds, cuffing him as he cursed under his breath. Ross entered last, eyes scanning the chaos. "Everyone okay?" I nodded, breath ragged. "Yeah." But he wasn't walking alone. Ross gestured toward the drive on the floor. "Is that it?" I picked it up carefully. The tiny piece of metal that had started all this. "Yeah," I said. "And it's the last one they'll ever hide." Back at the clubhouse, Karen was in handcuffs, sitting on the curb under a police umbrella. Her mascara had run in black streaks down her face, her designer shoes soaked through. When she saw Tyler, her expression crumbled. "Sweetheart," she whispered. "Come here." He stopped a few feet away. "You lied to me." Her eyes filled with tears. "I was trying to protect you. By stealing. By hurting people," he shouted. "Mr. Lang is dead because of you." "Don't say that," she screamed. "You don't understand what they made me do." He shook his head slowly. "No, Mom. You made your own choices." For the first time since this nightmare began, Karen didn't have an answer. She just broke, sobbing as officers lifted her to her feet and guided her toward the cruiser. Ross approached me quietly. "We've got Pierce, Avery, and most of the board in custody. With this drive, we'll have enough for federal charges. It's over." I nodded, watching as the police cars rolled away, tires slicing through puddles. But deep down, I knew something: these things never really end. Not cleanly. Not completely. Ross turned to Tyler. "You did the right thing tonight, son." Tyler looked away. "Feels like I destroyed my own family." "No," I said softly. "You just stopped the people who already had." He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time without hate. "Will she go to jail?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "But maybe now she'll face herself, not just the neighbors." He nodded, silent tears cutting lines through the rain on his face. As dawn broke, the last of the sirens faded. The neighborhood stood still, drenched, scarred, but breathing again. Mrs. Ramirez came out from her porch, holding a steaming mug of coffee. She handed it to me with a small smile. "I knew you were something more than a man with a parking problem." I chuckled softly. "Guess it started that way." She nodded toward the rising sun. "Justice has strange ways of packing itself, doesn't it?" For the first time in weeks, I laughed, really laughed. As the morning light washed over the street, I turned toward my house. A single white envelope sat on my doorstep, no name, no stamp. I opened it slowly. Inside was a photograph, me, from years ago, in a suit, standing beside a black government SUV. On the back, a handwritten note. "We know what you did in Baltimore. It's not over." The sun rose slow and golden that morning, washing Maplewood Estates in a fragile kind of peace. The rain had stopped. The chaos had drained away. But the silence that replaced it wasn't comfortable, it was the kind that follows a confession. The streets were sleek, empty, and still smelled faintly of smoke from the police flares. The HOA sign, once polished and proud, hung crooked at the entrance. And on my doorstep, the envelope waited like unfinished business. I stared at the photograph inside again. Me, standing beside a black government SUV, years younger, in a suit, wearing an expression I didn't recognize anymore. The handwriting on the back read, "We know what you did in Baltimore. It's not over." Baltimore. A name I'd buried deep. Years ago, before I became Daniel Grant, I worked under another name, David Reeve, a compliance investigator for a federal division that never made the news. We specialized in uncovering corruption buried inside housing programs and HOAs across the country, quiet crimes with loud victims. In Baltimore, I made my biggest case, and my biggest mistake. We exposed a luxury developer for laundering charity funds through fake housing grants. The operation succeeded, but an informant died in the process. A man I'd promised to protect. I testified, turned in my badge, and walked away. Started over. New name. New life. A quiet street, a simple home, and one rule, stay invisible. Until Karen Whitmore parked her son's Porsche in my space. Now, standing in that same driveway, I felt the weight of everything come full circle. The past had caught up. The investigation was over, but something darker was stirring behind the scenes. I tucked the photograph back into the envelope and slipped it inside my jacket. There would be time to deal with that later. For now, I needed to see the aftermath of the world I'd just torn down. The HOA clubhouse looked like a crime scene turned museum. Yellow tape hung across the doors, the smell of mildew and wet carpet lingering from last night's storm. Bullet holes dotted one of the walls. A single chair lay overturned beneath the projector, the same spot where Karen once ruled every meeting. I stood there for a long time, the echo of her voice still bouncing in my memory. Then, from behind me, a familiar voice said softly, "It's strange, isn't it? How power fades faster than rain." I turned. Mrs. Ramirez. She stepped inside, holding 2 cups of coffee, offering one to me. "You left this place better than you found it." "Did I?" I asked. "Because it doesn't feel like a victory." She smiled gently. "Justice never does. It just feels necessary." I nodded slowly. "How's Tyler?" "Staying with relatives," she said. "The boy's broken, but not beyond repair. He came by this morning to apologize. Said he wants to testify." That surprised me. "He's willing to go against Pace's lawyers." "He said you told him something last night," she said. "That he could still make things right." I exhaled, a small, weary smile tugging at my mouth. "Guess he believed me." She patted my arm. "You gave him something this neighborhood forgot about a long time ago." "What's that?" "Hope." Later that afternoon, I met with Agent Caleb Ross at a quiet diner off the interstate. He looked tired but satisfied, a man who'd finally caught the fish that kept him awake at night. "We've got everything," he said. "Pierce's company is being dismantled. Federal charges stick." And Karen's confession video went viral, over 8 million views. I chuckled under my breath. So the internet did half the work. Ross smiled. Sometimes the truth just needs the right audience. He slid a small folder across the table. "Your work here is done, Daniel. Or should I say, David?" I looked up. "So you knew?" He nodded. "I always knew. But after Baltimore, you deserved a second chance. You earned it back here." I flipped the folder open. Inside was a letter stamped, "Reinstatement approval." Ross leaned back. "We need good men who know what it means to lose, and still fight anyway." For a long moment, I just stared at that paper. Then I closed it gently. "I think I'm done fighting," I said. "At least for now." He nodded, understanding. "Then rest. You've earned that too." When I got home that evening, the neighborhood was alive again. Kids played on bikes. Dogs barked. Someone was grilling. Normal. Ordinary. Beautiful. Mrs. Ramirez waved from across the street. "No more Porsche problems." I grinned. "Not anymore." She laughed. "Good. I was thinking we'd paint that curb white, call it the spot of justice." We both laughed harder than we had in weeks. For the first time, Maplewood felt like a community again, not a kingdom ruled by fear, but a neighborhood run by conscience. And as I looked around, I realized something. The people weren't just watching me now, they were watching each other, finally awake to what mattered. That's how real change starts. Quietly. One parking space at a time. Night came softly. I sat on my porch, coffee in hand, the envelope with the photograph beside me. The air smelled of rain and cut grass. Somewhere in the distance, a new car engine purred, not a Porsche this time, just someone heading home. For once, I didn't tense at the sound. I just smiled. In the quiet, I thought about Karen. She'd built her whole life around control, but control is just fear in expensive clothing. And Pierce, he'd used that fear to build an empire, brick by brick, lie by lie. Now they were both gone. But somewhere out there, someone else was reading that same old playbook. Corruption doesn't die, it relocates. And maybe that's why people like me can never really disappear. I picked up the photograph one last time and studied my younger self, sharper, colder, convinced he could fix the world. He was wrong. You don't fix the world. You face it. And sometimes, you start with something as small as a stolen parking space. Some battles don't start with guns or greed, they start with someone refusing to move. In the end, justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And in that whisper, the truth finally finds its parking spot. I look straight ahead, the porch light flickering behind me. Then, softly, I said, "Tell me, what would you do if your neighbor thought the rules didn't apply to them?" I paused, letting the question hang in the air, the perfect moment for a YouTube fade out. Comment below. And remember, never underestimate the quiet ones. Fade to black.